You can
All
do
right, so
this.
I'm gonna start the stream here, and then just give me 2 seconds to bring y'all in. And okay, what's up, everybody watching on YouTube now and in the future? We are doing our first collaborative event with the Floxies community. Say hi, Floxies.
Hi, everyone.
And we're just waiting for Harshit to join us. He had just a quick internet drop right before, so he'll be with us shortly. But we're going to turn it over to the Floxies to run their typical meetup, and we're going to experiment with this to see how it goes. So excited to see what we work with today. Harshit is going to be talking about client first, if we can get him back online here. Otherwise, we will improv and just hang out with the women of Webflow here and learn more about the group and the community that they're building here, which is super interesting. So Claudia, the stage is all yours. Oh, and there's Harshit, just as we mentioned it. Perfect timing. Okay, so stage is all yours. Go for it.
Hi, Raimar. Thank you very much. And thank you, Finsweet, for the opportunity of streaming this event live on YouTube. So hello to everyone who's watching over there. Harshit, welcome back. He's actually facing a storm right now in India. So if anything goes wrong, we'll just keep on rolling and we'll make sure that we get as much as we can from you. Harshit is a great web developer who works at Finsweet, and today he will be walking us through the client-first system, which was made with an idea in mind of helping beginners and expert Webflow developers better develop their websites in a cleaner way and more accessible to everyone. So if you've never used Webflow before, this is a great chance for you because you're coming onto the field with a blank page, so with an open mind, and client first is definitely going to help you out when you're building those clean websites. So Harshit, how's it going on your end?
Hello guys, hello, I hope all are doing well. So I'm really excited for this stream, and it's actually good. So Storm is now calmed down and we can continue the stream. And yeah, today we are going to cover very basics of the client first for the awesome community that Claudia has made. And I will try to go slow and cover some pinpoints of the client first. And then we are going to make some sections that will give you a good idea about the whole thing, how it works. So I'm excited for that. And yeah, welcome to the stream.
Yeah.
Just for the folks on the stream, if you have questions for the group, send them in the YouTube channel and I'll forward them to the chat. The gather space is just a private kind of members only space here, and that's why we're streaming from it, so they can kind of control the environment and the setting there. And if you have questions for them, pass them through on the YouTube chat and I'll forward them in through the gather chat just to pass those through throughout the event. So that'll be my last interruption here. Okay.
Thank you, Raimar. And speaking of questions, the way our webinar workshop is going to roll on today will be that Harshit is going to walk us through the rebuild of part of the homepage of Discord, which we all love and use for our communities. And straight after the first section, let's say maybe the hero, we're going to have some time, maybe 10 minutes for questions. And the way we can do that, if you look down on your bar on GatherTown, there's an emoji, there's a smiley face. So you click on it, and then you want to put your hand up so that we're very civil, and Harshit can just call our names and we just ask our questions once at a time. So Harshit, that's me done. Over to you.
Nice. Okay, so can I start sharing my screen and then, yeah, let's just start the whole thing. Yeah. Everyone can open discord.com on their page. I'm making sure that everything is fine on my side. Okay, nice. Let's start the screen share. Is my screen visible, Claudia?
Lovely to see everyone on Gather. So if you hear a noise, that's me just saying hello to everyone.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will start with the introduction of client first, what client first is, and what we are trying to do with client first in the Webflow space. So client first, a lot of people call client first naming convention, but it's not only the naming convention. Naming convention is a part of client first, but client first is combination of naming convention, best practices, like how to structure things, how to name things properly in a clean way, in a manner way that makes sense. So it's combination of uh, good naming, then we have accessibility practices, SEO practices. So combination of all those things make client first. The good part about client first is it's not really having any strict rules. You can combine your own language, I would say, or your own touch to the client first to make it yours, and that is the most powerful thing that I feel about client first. So uh, okay, Colin, are you having a question?
Yes, I do. I am seeing, I think, a screen share of you showing Gather. And it looked like at one point maybe you were starting to show the client first homepage. So I'm not sure that the right screen is coming through.
You're right. Yeah. So I do want to do that. So I will just jump here as well. So thank you so much, Colin, for that. Yeah. So now let's start. I'm going to start with some pinpoints of the client first. I'm not going to cover the whole documentation for the client first. I'm just going to cover some very basic points of the client first. And let me close my Slack. There we go. Okay. So talking about the client first. Okay, so the pinpoints that I have here, as I said, there are no strict rules here on client first. We are just going to follow some of the best practices suggested by pro developers and experienced developers. And when making client first, of course, beginners and experts both made the system together. So that's good part of it. And one of the best thing of client first is the naming. So when we name our classes, we make sure that we are not using any abbreviations that is making your class name unclear. So instead of using, let's say for an example, we have a background. So instead of calling it BG, we will call it background to make it clear. So these are some of the practices that we use in client first to make it clear for anyone. Okay, so if I'm using background instead of BG, it's clear for a beginner, it's clear for a client who don't understand the language of a web developer. Then we use a lot of global classes to fulfill some of the things, like some part of the spacing and the typography and all those things. I will jump onto that as well. Then we also use custom classes. So custom classes is something that you will create by yourself. And when I'm talking about classes, I am just assuming that you are familiar with what classes are in Webflow. I am assuming that everyone is familiar with Webflow, and we are going to start the client first from the base here. Let's jump to the documentation. Again, I'm not going to cover the whole documentation, but I'm just going to cover some of the few pinpoints of it. I will start with the classes. So what are the classes that we have in client first? So I have the client first clonable open with me. And oh, how can I see the hand here? So if I'm sharing my screen, let me take this thing to my next screen maybe. There we go. So, okay. So starting with the classes. So our client first template, we have different types of classes that we use to make our website. And these are divided into some parts. One of them is structure. The first one is structure. So structural classes are the classes that helps you create the base structure of a page. Okay, so whenever you see a page like this Discord, you see that page is kind of limited at some point. It's not expanding infinitely. So we will use a structure class to limit that section width. Okay, same goes with the whole page wrapper. The page wrapper is kind of wrapping up the whole page together. So page wrapper is in the top. You don't really have to look into this and understand it right away. But what I just want to say is structural classes are classes that helps us to create base structure of a page. Then the second type of classes we have are typography classes. So with typography classes, we have classes for headings, paragraphs, and then headings, paragraphs, and different sizes of it. Okay. And how do we achieve a good naming convention here? By using some terms, by dividing it into few parts. So if I have like text, I'm using text size. That means it's a text element, and I'm just going to define the size of it, that is large. Same goes with the other sizes. Text size small, text size regular. These are the text size classes. Here with headings, we have it directly instead of having a size, because of the reason that on the text, we use text for other things as well, like for styles. Then we use text styling, text style code. So when we are writing the middle part, when you see the middle part of it, the size, the style, it's kind of, you can uh, compare it with something like a CSS property it's trying to define here. Okay, so when it comes to size, it's actually defining the font size of that text element. When it comes to when it comes to text style, it contains all the styles that we generally use in our website, like all caps, then italic, quote will make a highlighted point here. So these are some of the classes that we use in typography. Jumping to the spacing classes. In spacing classes, whenever we want to space our element, so for example, you can see that we have this section that is create an invite only place where you belong. So this section, you can see that I have a top space here and I have a bottom space here. So these kind of spaces are actually created using these spacing classes. Okay, when it comes to margin, so you can see that we have a paragraph here. I want to create a space between my heading and a paragraph, so I will just use a margin class to create that space. This is what spacing classes does in client first. Then we have some useful globals. These useful globals, we introduced them because we felt like these are regularly used, and they are pretty handy if we have it already saved in our Webflow designer. Okay, so for example, we have hide and show. When you apply this global class, and global class is something that is going to be applied on top of an element, so I can show you that as well. So let's say, for example, we have a div block, and I'm going to name it red box. Okay. Then the global class means that it is always going to be applied directly to an element, or it can be applied as a combo class. So I'm going to hide this red box without actually applying a hide property here. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to apply a hide class, and I can see that it's going to be hidden like this. So this is what our global classes are actually doing, making things easy. We have others like hide tablet. So what this will do, by the naming, you can clearly understand the whole thing. I don't really have to explain everything in bit detail here. So when it says hide tablet, that means it will hide my box from the tablet breakpoint. When it says hide mobile, then it's going to hide my box from the mobile breakpoint. So this is how it works. So let's say I'm going to apply here hide tablet. Now you can see that my box is visible on the desktop breakpoint, but it's hidden on the tablet breakpoint. This is how we are using global classes, and we have others as well, like max width. By the name, you can understand it is used to set a max width on a paragraph. So for example, I will delete this. I will take a paragraph here. Let's say I have a paragraph. You can see that the paragraph is kind of expanding up to the end here. I just have taken a div block and I have paragraph inside that. I'm going to apply a max width class to it. So I will apply max width. Let's go for max width small. You can see that my paragraph is limited now. The good part about this system is that you don't really have to stick with the default number here. You can always change it based on your project. So if you feel like this paragraph is too small for you, you can change the value like a little bit. You can go for 24 rhymes here. You are free to do that. That is why we are not using any defined number in the class name. It is not called like max width 20 RAM or something like that, but it is called max width small, so that you can change the value of it. Is anybody having any questions? I'm going to jump onto next part as well. So I think, yeah, feel free to ask any question if you have.
I think so far we're good. We had a comment on YouTube by Eddie Joud about the content. So thank you so much, Eddie. I'm happy that you're following us. He's a GitHub star with a community of his own. So I'm very excited that he's watching us doing this. Yeah, no, it's really great. As you're saying, classes are quite self-explanatory, which is really what makes this client-first system really accessible and so powerful.
Mhm.
So by all means, keep going.
Thank you. Thank you, Glad to hear that. So, yeah, jumping to the useful globals, we have useful globals with us. Then we have some components classes. So, component is the most interesting part of client first. If you are using Webflow, you will feel at some point you will feel like you are running out of names. You can't really think of name what you should name your classes. So components is kind of fixing that problem for you. And the second biggest thing components is doing is kind of maintaining a clean structure for your website with a consistency in your website. Okay, so components is something that you make by your own self. Okay, we don't provide components in the global, but this is something yet that you make for your own website by yourself. So I'm going to cover the components part where I'm going to make this website. So just for an example, you can assume different section. You can break your website into different small components. For example, I can call this a hero component or a header component. Header component is actually much better and clear. This is a header component. This component, right, the second section that you see here. So this thing, the whole part, the whole white thing is actually a section, but inside that, this part is called as a component. Because you are actually going to reuse it as well, you can name it something like grid to call component, layout to call component. That means a layout to column component. So yeah, components are basically smaller parts, or it can be a bigger part as well of a section that kind of help you to maintain a consistency and you know maintain a consistency with good naming as well. You are not going to run out of names if you are using components. Again, I will give a very nice example here. So if you see these sections, the second section, third one, fourth one, and yeah, these three sections are pretty similar. These two are like, we have image on the left side, then text on the right side. Same goes with this, it's a flipped one. So instead of naming, thinking about a name, I can go with a component here and I can call it layout to column component, or maybe grid to call component. That means it's a grid and it's having two column on it. Or I can name it something like maybe you can call it layout. If you want to go specific, let's say this is an about section, then you can name it about component. So when naming with component, you have two ways to do that. You can go very specific or you can go very general. And how do we make that decision? So we make that decision based on the reusability of the section. How much are you going to reuse that section, or is that section specific to that page? So talking about this particular case, I can see this section getting reused down here and here as well. So I will like to call it layout to call component. If this section was one of its kind, then I'm going to call it something more specific, like testimonial component, about component, or something like that. So we will jump on the components a little bit later more. Then we have, okay, let's jump to the sizes. Okay, yeah, for the layouts, again, layouts is something like I just explained. We don't have any grid globals here because of the reason that we wanted to make it really easy, and we give you the flexibility to create your own system inside. If you want to create a global grid system, you are free to do that, and you can also create a custom grid system for yourself. Just like here, I would just create layout to call and I will make a grid out of it. So you are free to do that. Let's see the sizings. So this is again one of the important part of client first. For sizing, we use 4-point system. And the unit that we use is REMs. We use REMs for the accessibility purposes. And at some point, initially when you will start with REMs, you might take a little bit time to shift from pixels to REMs. But after you are completely shifted to REMs, you will actually feel it much easier, because of the fact that it's just one number, one digit. When you are applying a spacing, you can just go for 3 REMs, 4 REMs. You don't have to think about 2 or 3 digit numbers. It's very easy to work with REMs afterwards. The reason for the REMs is again accessibility. The 4-point system that we use is again to maintain a consistency. We call it the magical system as well a lot of times. So, okay, I see a message. What is the best practice of max width for a component? Nice question. That's a really nice question. So this question is having, I'm going to answer this question. This is a really nice one. So this question is having actually 2 branches on it. A lot of times we have some kind of sections for, in this example, you can see the paragraph that we have. It's kind of having the same max width, right? So in this case, I am not going to use a custom class for the max width, but I'm going to use the global classes that we have with us. That is max width small, or I can maybe have max width x small. Okay, so I'm just going to type here max width, and then I will select x small. Okay, so this is how I will do it for this particular website. But in talking in general, a lot of times this is not as much as consistent. This section can be having a little bit longer paragraphs. So in that case, you should not bound yourself to the global classes. You have a total flexibility. If you think there is a section that is not fitting inside any of the global classes, you should not waste your time there finding a perfect fit for it. Just name it something relevant. Okay, so let's say this section is about component. You can name your div block about _ text wrapper. Okay, so now by reading the name, I can understand that this is a part of about component, and this is a text wrapper. And now I will directly apply my max width to it. Okay, so you have always the 2 branches. You will need to make a decision based on whether it's a completely custom thing, or are you again, can you see that max width thing, getting used on other sections as well. So you are completely free to do that as well. Now, for the Floxies community, please don't get confused with this about _ I will get back to it.
Yes, I was just about to say, I think it will be a lot clearer when we go into the actual build of Discord.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so yeah.
But don't feel in a rush, because we know that you like to run. You're doing great. Just please keep going like that.
Okay, for sure. Okay, so yeah, this is all about the 4-point system. In short, 4-point system is using size it that is multiple of 4s. Okay, so 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. We have a whole table here. It's not something like you are strict and bounded to use this, but these are some magical units. They just work like magic. We are using this in our client projects, and all of the projects we use it. A lot of times we have to break the rule and use other unit, but it's completely fine. It's something that is highly recommended. You can use some other value if it's really needed. Okay, then then the accessibility part, again, client first. The structure that we follow is kind of supports and follows the best accessibility practices. I don't really have a lot of things to dive inside the document, so I'm just going to dive inside the build of discord.com here. So let's close this document. When we start with client first, you can clone the document from the Finsweet clonable. Remar can share you the link, and Claudia, can you please share the link here as well if you want? And then when we clone the client first template, we start with the blank page. The home page that you will see will be a blank page. you might see that, hey, there is nothing to do here, but everything is inside the style guide page. We don't want to fill the home page so that you clone it and start it right away. We start with the page wrapper. So page wrapper is a structure global class, as we discussed, that is going to wrap up everything in a page, each and every sections. Inside that page wrapper, we are going to have a main wrapper. So I kind of remove that. So we are going to have main wrapper. So main wrapper, why are we dividing this into two parts like page wrapper and main wrapper? Because of accessibility. So main wrapper consists of all the sections, and outside the main wrapper, we keep our nav bars and footers. Okay, so it's very important to make sure that when we are having a main wrapper, we go here on the settings and we select the main tag. Then let's create, okay, let's jump to the discord.com, and I am going to place it next to my screen so that, yeah. Nice. Or should I just keep it here? I think I should keep it here so that everyone can see how I'm actually doing it.
I think it's okay if you build, we can, I'm sure people can have it on a separate tab. So as soon as you're done building the header, we can compare to the original sites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Sure,
so
sure. Yeah, I would also like to actually kind of show the arrows and all the things. So I think it's fine. We are not going to build the whole thing here. So it should be fine. Yeah. So let's start with the nav bar here. So I can see a nav bar. I am going to start with it. It's really important, as I just said, nav bar should be placed outside our main wrapper. So let's start with the name. I just imported a nav bar from the elements panel, and this is one of the Webflow's nav bar, and I'm going to name it. I'm going to make a component out of it. How to make a component? When we are naming a component, we use underscore. So first we will type the name. I can call it nav. I can call it nav bar. Let's make it nav bar. And then I will type underscore component. So when a component starts, it starts from the component name itself. So I'm using component here. That means the component starts from this particular element. Okay, this particular element. And then we have the container. We are not going to use the Webflow container because of the flexibility issues. We are going to create our own here. So I'm just going to call it nav bar underscore container. And now you can see that what I did is I just typed nav bar and container. I'm not calling it container only. Because of the reason I want to make this container part of the nav bar, I have named it nav bar underscore container. This underscore depicts that this is part of a bigger system, that is component. Okay. When I'm reading this name, I can completely understand this is part of nav bar component. Now let's give a max width to this thing. I will just give max width of 1280 pixels for now, for the sake of time. And okay, because we are using RAMs here, we can convert RAMs directly inside our designer. So by default, one RAM is equal to 16 pixels. So we are just going to divide each and every value of pixel by 16, and that will give us the value of RAM. So we have 120 divided by 16, and then we will type in RAM and we hit enter. So now it's actually having a max width of 80 RAMs. Let's also use another structure classes that is called page padding. Let me tell you the use of page padding as well. So I will take page padding and inside the nav component, and I'm going to place the container inside my page padding. Now you will see that I am not using nav bar underscore page padding. Why, Harshit? Why are you doing that? I am doing that because page padding is not part of only nav bar. So page padding is something that we are going to use in all of our sections. That's why it's a global class. It's not bounded to the nav bar component. Now let's see what we have. And what page padding does is basically applies padding on the both side so that our content is not sticking to the boundaries of our computer. We have some space on right and left side. This is what page padding do. Let's see what we have here. So I can see this is divided into 3 parts. One of them is the logo, links, and a button. I'm going to do the same here. Let's shift everything, each and every element that we have to the container that we have created. Just a second. Now here comes the fun part. So now you can see how I will name these elements. So I have a link block that is going to contain the nav menu. I'm going to name it Nav Bar _ brand link. That means this brand link is part of Nav Bar component. I'm not running out of names. Bar _ menu. And all the links inside, I'm going to call it Nav Bar _ link. You can go with nav link as well. I just choose to go with Nav Bar link for now. And this is going to be called as Nav Bar _ You can always copy it up to the underscore, so you can type the names very easily. So Nav Bar _ menu button. At that, I'm going to make it Nav Bar _ menu icon. Now, if you see my naming, it is very clear and understandable. I can pick up any random elements and I will know where it belongs to. This menu icon belongs to Nav Bar component. Again, the same thing. Let's now make our Nav Bar component transparent. So I'm just going to use some Webflow properties to make them transparent. And let's take our Discord here. There we go. Looks nice. And I'm just going to make some alignments here.
Okay, what's up, everybody? If you're watching us on the YouTube live stream, we're here with the Floxies Community. So the Floxies Community is having Harshit in-house to teach a little bit about what's going on with Client First, and we're just streaming it to the YouTube channel as a content experiment. So we're gonna jump in and out here as they build. Right now, he's building the Discord homepage. So if you're just joining us, we're using the Client First system by Finsweet, which I will share a link to in the comments here, and also using the Webflow, the extension, the Chrome browser extension by Finsweet. So I will share links to both of those in the comments here, and we'll now go right back into the build with Harshit and Floxies Community.
Then I'm just going to put 5 links. I will change them. Let's change the size to, okay. Okay, let's make the hero section now. This thing will come together when we make the hero home header section. Now, the hero section should be placed inside the main wrapper. So I'm just going to take another div block. All the section naming starts with a prefix section so that we are very clear it is a section and not a component. So I will just call it section home header. I can go with, again, there are multiple branches of naming the section. Everything will start with section, but you can see that I used here home. When reading this, that depicts that this particular section is only getting used in the home, and this is not getting reused on other pages. If I want to make a header section that is going to be reused in other pages, I'm not going to make it section home header. Instead, I will name it section header. Okay, so I hope that is clear. And now let's take a page padding inside there, because everything is after section we always have a page padding. Inside page padding, we are going to place a container. We have 3 structural classes for the container. I'm going to choose container, let's say large, or maybe a large will work for now. Maybe let's go with container medium. It doesn't matter because the hero section is kind of having a smaller version of itself. Now inside that, let's take a spacing class. You can see I have a top space here and a bottom space. So, okay, so I am going to use a spacing class from client first. I will call it padding vertical. So spacing classes are divided into two parts. One of them is direction, the direction where you want to apply the spacing. The second part is the size, how much spacing do you want? Okay, so these are the two things that you need to define before applying the spacing. First, I will define the direction, that is padding vertical. And when typing the name, you don't really have to type the full name. You can go with shortcuts. Like here for padding vertical, I just typed pad ver. Okay. When it's margin large, you can type MAR, LAR. So these are the shortcuts. Padding vertical, and now I'm going to select size. I will go with padding huge, or maybe X huge. So we have a whole spectrum of the sizes: small, large, X huge, X small, XX huge, something like that. You can also create your own if you want to create something even outside of that. But we have a vast variety of classes for spacing to select with. Now let's see what we have in terms of the structure. So let's expand this thing. Okay. Now comes the fun part, the component part. I am going to create a home header component. I am going to call it home header component. This is my home header component that is going to contain all of the things that you see here. Okay, I don't have the font, so I'm just going to use a normal font for now. And let's take a heading. Let's take a div block. I'm going to divide the home header component into two parts because I can see some of the illustrations and I can also see a text and paragraphs here. So I will call it home header content wrapper. First part. Yeah. Then let's take our heading inside that. Let me make the section color blue so that it's actually visible on our site. Okay, I can pick the color. Okay, so there are two ways to apply colors on your section. You can go with a global class. So we have global classes for the colors. I will show you that. So we use background color, black, white, and gray. You can create your own here. So what I will do is I will just create my own background color blue. And let's paste our color code here. I will save a swatch here. I will call it maybe primary blue. I don't know what the primary color is, but for now, let's call it primary blue. And now I can use this global class on my section. If you think this color only is specific to this particular section, you can completely go ahead and apply it directly like this. So for now, I'm just going to apply it on the, let's apply it directly. I don't think we have any other sections in blue. Yeah, so let's apply it directly. There we go. Let's make text color of our hero section, the header section, white. So I could have used a global classes that we have for text colors that is called text. Again, with the name, you can understand text color, black, gray. I can create a white one. The reason I have a lot of them, this is white, this is white. I'm just going to apply the white color directly to my section home header. This is the very important part you need to understand. You should never bound yourself to use globals. If you will bound yourself, you will waste a lot of your time, and we don't recommend that. Client first is to help you and not to increase your time when you are developing it. It is only there for you so that you can make your process more efficient and make website faster. Let's copy this. I'm just going to use this. Here we go. And now you can see that I am not going to use a global to center align everything. And because I can use this, but we have globals. Let me show you that as well. So we have globals for text center. I will just type text align center. That will kind of center align everything for me. Let me show you. There we go. But we can go with this, or we can directly apply it to our content wrapper as well. I personally like to do it the way I directly apply it. So let's remove this from here and apply it directly. And I'm just going to make some alignment changes. Now I want to a paragraph here with a little bit of space. So what I'm going to do is create another spacing classes. I will take a div block. I will call it mar top. I am deciding the direction. I want a margin in the top. Okay, let's see. We have some questions. That's nice. Okay.
I did watch the film that he's referring to, Moxie, and yes, that kind of triggered the idea. But Flow and Moxie. Now, Floxies actually comes from a Latin word, which is flox, which stands for flower or flame. And it's also a beautiful flower that grows in tough conditions. So I thought it was just the perfect metaphor for women growing in technology. So that's and it sounds really good. So that's an easy explanation for it.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, so let's continue here. So I will delete this div block for confusion. So I was telling that we have this paragraph with a top margin. So I have taken a div block and I have divided into two parts, the direction and the spacing. So the direction I want my spacing is margin top. You will have all the classes like margin left, right, bottom, top, vertical, horizontal. Okay. So I'm just going to use margin top, and the size that I picked here is small. But when I go to the live website, I see, okay, this is the wrong size. I want something even more here. So I can always go back like this, and I can select another size. I will go with maybe medium, margin medium. This looks much better. Let's go with this. Have a paragraph inside, and there we go. Now you can see, okay, let me copy this paragraph here. Okay, here comes the question from N2. I'm going to use the same thing. In this particular part, I think I can use the global class. So I'm just going to apply the global directly to this one. Let's apply max width medium. Okay. And I'm going to center align this from here. There we go. Instead of stacking 4 classes, or even we should try not to stack a lot of classes. I am applying it here, but there is one more way you can do it. That is, you can create another div block here, and you can call it okay, and you can call it something relevant. Let me try to find a name here. So home header paragraph wrapper, or maybe text wrapper, I will call it. Yeah, text wrapper. This is what I was talking about. And
watching, you could do those combo classes and then use the extension to combine those eventually. So you could build quick and then eventually afterwards come back and reorder or reorganize some of those classes just for speed and efficiency there. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that's a nice point, Remar. Yeah, we can use. Okay, so this is, for some reason this is not turned on. I think because of the update we were talking about. But we have a feature in our extension where we can combine classes and make it one class if we are not sure, how we are going to create it from scratch. Yeah, something we can just
in the meantime, we've got Keegan, Larry waking up in Hawaii and saying good morning. So good morning to you. We're having a walkthrough Client First by Finsweet, hosted by Floxies Community. So good morning, Hawaii.
Nice. Okay, so let's see what we have got here. Good morning. So yeah, let's jump here. So I directly applied the max width to my element here, and yeah, let's keep it this way. And you can see that I'm feeling that, you know, the space is not completely, I want a little bit less here, so I can always go back and apply something else. There we go. Yeah, much better. Let's create the button wrapper. Okay, do we have a question? Use component name. What about heading and paragraph inside? Do we create a class component name, description, or do we leave tags h1 and paragraphs without class style depending? That's a nice question. So what Vene is asking is, he's asking why are we not applying the component naming to our paragraphs and headings? So paragraphs and heading is something that is global. We want to reuse it. Okay, we don't want to bound this heading to a particular section, because all of you might know that classes actually carry the styles. So if I'm going to bound this to this particular section, I will not be able to reuse this in other sections where it's needed. You know, it will just create a confusion in the naming. So that is why we are just going to leave it in the tags, and that is the best way. You can always leave the text here. It's not mandatory that you name the heading or the paragraph. Okay, and I hope that answered the question, but if anything is unclear or if I missed something, please let me know. Now I am going to create a button wrapper to wrap these two buttons. And after this section, I'm going to stop for a second for some time so that we can answer the questions.
Yeah,
So
and also see if any people on Gather have got any questions. So yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do the header and then see around the table.
Yeah. So the button wrapper that you see here, I'm not going to use a margin top. This is just, again, something, as we were saying, there are no strict rules in the client first. So this time I'm not going to use a margin top. Instead, I am going to apply the margin to directly my button wrapper. The reason behind that is the button wrapper, and you can say, see, I'm not naming it like home header button wrapper. I just named it like button wrapper. That means it's a global class that I will be reusing in other sections. So if I want a button here, I can reuse this particular element. Okay, like here you can see we have a button wrapper, so with the same spacing. So I just created my own global class, and you have your freedom to create your own. Okay, let's place a button inside that. For now, I'm not going to create everything in too much of the detail, but yeah, let's create the button. I will call it button and apply some radius to it, make it white. And let's take, okay. I'm just taking the colors from the button itself, nothing too fancy here. And I'm going to save this color as black. Let's change the spectrum ourselves.
While you're changing the colors, there's another question from YouTube by Rock and Roll CEO. If you're using client first for a client, shouldn't you stick to globals as much as possible? Rather than,
nice
for example, with text align center, rather than center it from the parent element.
Yeah, so that's a question, Rock and Roll CEO, and thank you so much for all the support that you give us always. First of all, yeah, and then answering the question, you will have to find a sweet spot where you are using globals and custom classes together, because our clients will, when we have more custom classes, you can think it in a way that chances of messing up the template website is less. The thing with globals are, a lot of times you will feel you are stacking a lot of classes on top of each other, like I was doing with this particular part, and then I stopped. I just realized, let's not stack it. and create a different class for it. So it's completely fine. The only thing is when you are naming it, it should be relevant. Okay, it should make sense. It should be clear for the client when it is when they are reading it. Okay, if you are going to stack up use only globals, it is going to make your website very complex to use, because you will have to think like 10 times before applying a style, because you will see that, hey, I'm having like 4 classes stacked up or 3 classes stacked up, or even 2. You will have to think about that. If I make a change here, it will not be applied to all of the part because there is combination of globals. So you will have to find a sweet spot where you are using globals, and the most global classes that you will actually use will be the spacing classes, because spacing is something that remains global in the website mostly. Okay, so the most used global is actually spacing, and rest of the thing you can actually think before you using it. Again, how to make that decision whether you should use a global or a custom. You should consider a few things here. One of them is if the class that you are going with is making your and your client work easy or not. Okay, if you are okay, so for example, for the button wrapper, I have not gone with but margin top and margin small because of the reason. Let's say I'm in a point where I want to change the spacing of only button wrappers for all of the sections. I can simply go to my button wrapper class and I can change it. Okay, so you will have to make decision in thinking about different things, and the most important thing is client first should make your work easy. It should not make your work hard. Okay, that is the whole purpose of client first. That point alone will make you take a good decision while naming classes. I hope that answers your question, but let me know if you have anything else. Let's call it load. And I will just going to create another one. Open Discord for now. There we go. Now you can see that we have a space in between this thing. Okay, and we have a black color button as well. Now I'm going to use combo classes. So combo classes is again something really powerful, and we have a way to name our combo classes. Okay, so all of our combo classes starts with a prefix that is. Okay, is dash, so that we know that this is a combo class and not a global. Okay, so you can freely make a change here in terms of the designs. So the button element that I have here, I'm going to call it, there are 2 options. You can create another button. You can call it button black, but you can go with something global. You can always have button and you will have a combo class is black. And then you can just go ahead and change the color of it, just like this. Now you will see that there is a space in between those buttons. What we can do here. So again, there are few things you can do. You can use a global that is margin right and margin small. I just take a div block, place my button inside. Let's have a wrap okay, in my button wrapper, and I will call it mar right. That is margin right and margin small. There we go. I just applied a margin and made the space. But there is second way that I find more flexible and more usable. I just create a global class that is called is lefty or is left, something like that. And what it will allow you to do is apply a spacing like this. You can apply a space directly here. So you have both of the ways. You can do both. Okay, so next time whenever I want to apply a space, I can simply click here and it will already show me the options that I have. I will select is left, just like this. Okay, now the last part of this thing, let's make these illustrations. They look really nice, and let's do that as well. I'm going to create another div block. I'm going to call it home header image wrapper. That's going to wrap up all the images, and I'm going to set a max width to it, and I can see that it is kind of the text is above the thing, I'm going to make it absolute positioning, and going to make my section relative. So this is how we do positioning things. Sorry, my voice is breaking.
No worries. We care about the well-being of our guest speakers.
Yeah, it's all good. I'm enjoying it. Yeah. So I just named it home header image wrapper, or maybe images wrapper. You can call it whatever you like. Now let's set it absolute and down here. And let's set a max width to it so that you can see that images are not really expanding infinitely, but they also have a max width. Okay. So the max width that I'm going to apply will be 1440 divided by 16 rem. To convert the value in rem, I get the rem value that is 90, and I'm going to center align it. Now let's take our image element inside. I'm using the Webflow shortcut keys for the image element. I will take these clouds. Now here comes the very fun part of naming things. I can call it home. I can call this cloud home header cloud image, or maybe home header cloud, something like that. It's very clear that it's a cloud image, part of the home header thing. Okay. And then let's see what else we have. We have this guy chilling out in the shoe. Let's take another image element. I'm going to call this one. There we go. Let's call it home header. You can call it illustration 1, illustration 2, illustration 3, but I am just going to make something more specific here. I will call it shoe guy. Okay. We can go some fun here. You can do some fun here. There we go.
Harshit, we've got a question from Anto Arianto. Should we use create a text color white global class on top of header paragraph?
Yes, you can do that. You have the option for it, and you can actually apply it to the, let me hide this thing for now. Okay, you can apply that global class on the header component itself. I applied the white color to my section element, but let's see what will happen if I apply it to the home header component. So first I will need to create the class. Let's take a text block. I will name it text color white. I just created a global by my own, and just a second, I really want to switch the default color here. Okay. Now I just created the global class, give it a white color. Let's apply this global here on the home header component, text color white, and you can see it works fine as well. So you can go with this way as well. You have the flexibility for it. Both of the ways are right. Nothing is here, it's not like this is the wrong way or that is the wrong way. Both of them is correct. You can choose whatever you feel is best for you.
Yeah, I think that's the key to all of this. Obviously client first gives you the possibility to make things a lot easier, but then ultimately it's like whatever works for you best.
Exactly. Yeah. The most important part is how you structure and name things. That is the most important point of client first. Okay. Structure should be very clear and naming should be very clear. That is something you really need to focus on. The rest of the decision really depends on you. Now, again, let me make that visible. There we go. I'm going to apply absolute positioning to it, to this guy here. And I don't know why his, okay, I don't know why he's not shifting. Okay. I'm just going to make a little bit of arrangements here.
Okay, once again, if you're just joining us on the stream here, we are live streaming from the Floxies Community meetup. They meet once a week to chat about design, UX, UI, and Webflow stuff. And so as part of an effort of what we're trying to do is shine some light on other stuff happening in the community, we're experimenting with just live streaming their meetup. And so Harshit is teaching client first to a group of ladies here inside the Floxies meetup, and we're streaming it to the Finsweet channel. So if you're doing a cool meetup, if you're doing something in the community and you would like a little bit of extra attention, or you think it might be something worth streaming to a little bit larger audience, we would love to do that. So we don't have any formal way to reach out. You can leave a comment in the chat here, and we're monitoring those. You can reach out directly to rymar@finsweet.com. You can find us on Slack or wherever it is that you connect with Finsweet stuff. But in case you're wondering what's going on here, we are rebuilding the Discord homepage. And so Harshit is walking through the process of building this. We probably will not show the whole stream here. I think we're scheduled to go for about another 30 minutes. So we'll now return right back to your previously scheduled programming.
Heading, I cannot click because of the reason the image wrapper is coming in the top. So there are few ways you can solve this issue. First way is you can use the Z index and give it a Z index, something like this. You can see it's gone now. What I will do is I will give a Z index to my home header component of 1. So it's above the image wrapper. Second thing you can do here is you can use a utility class. So we have some utility class, useful classes in client first. One of them is pointer events none. That means we call it clickable off. That means it's having the power to turn off the click for any element. Okay, so if I want to apply the clickable off and on to this, I will just type clickable off. Now you can see that these images are not clickable for me. I cannot click them anymore. So I have access to my paragraph and heading very easily. You can go with both of the ways, but just to make sure heading is in the top, I'm still going to apply. I'm still going with the heading top. I'm going to set them relative and Z index 1. So they are in the top of. So these are some of the properties, Webflow properties, which we use to set layers. And I'm going to make this. Okay, there we go. Yeah. So I think we just completed the desktop part of it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
I think that's brilliant, and it's also great for time, because what I'm thinking is I would love to kind of challenge the people that are watching and the people on GatherTown.
Make the text color white. Some minor touches that you can give. Again, making it responsive is a different thing. So I hope we will do more of this, maybe offline, or feel free to ask me any questions. Even after the event, if you find any questions, feel free to ask me that as well. So yeah, I will stop my screen share and going to jump to the tables to answer some of the questions.
I'm going to share an invite link for the people on YouTube. Possibly it's an aspiring link just to give you access for a day to our space, Floxies. If you don't know who we are, we're a community for women and those who identify as one.
We built the hero section here. Harshit just built the hero section as part of the project, and so the challenge was to build the rest of these here. I don't know if